And if you don't know, my mom was originally on the Real Housewives of Atlanta, so I've been featured on Bravo a few times, but this is my first time being the main character.
For years, fans believed that Kandi Burruss and her daughter Riley shared one of the tightest mother-daughter bonds in reality television. Viewers watch Riley grow up on the Real Housewives of Atlanta, usually quiet and reserved, but always standing by her mom's side. Kandi built an image of a successful boss woman, juggling business, music, family, and fame. To the world, she seemed unshakable, and Riley looked like the lucky daughter living in the shadow of that glamorous empire. But everything changed when Riley stepped out of the shadows and into the spotlight, and not in the way anyone expected. She didn't promote a business, drop new music, or launch a product line. Instead, she dropped a truth bomb, one so raw and painful that it made fans rethink everything they thought they knew about the Burruss family. Riley claimed that behind all the cameras and glam, she was emotionally neglected, silenced, and treated like a product instead of a person. And now, with her voice shaking but her message clear, she's letting the world know that the perfect family image wasn't so perfect after all. The biggest question everyone's been asking since her confession went viral is simple: what does Kandi have to say? At first, Kandi said nothing. No long captions, no fiery clapbacks, no tear-eyed YouTube videos, but silence speaks, and sometimes it screams. And now, after weeks of tension building online, Kandi has responded, but not how you expect. So is this a mother's pain or a carefully rehearsed response to protect their brand? Let's get into it. So far, Kandi Burruss hasn't made a direct public statement naming Riley or confirming her daughter's emotional claims. But behind the scenes, fans believe she's speaking volumes, not just in the way many hoped. According to unconfirmed sources close to the family, Kandi is said to be deeply hurt and blindsided by Riley's public confession. One unnamed insider reportedly told a gossip blog, Kandi feels like Riley aired their dirty laundry when they could have just talked it out at home. She's shocked her daughter took it this far. Meanwhile, fans have been combing through Kandi's recent interviews, Instagram posts, and Bravo appearances looking for hidden meanings. In one interview, Kandi said, "Sometimes people forget that we're human too. We make mistakes." She didn't name Riley, but many took it as a veiled reference to the scandal. Speculation is swirling that her silence is actually strategic. Some fans believe Kandi's PR team advised her to stay quiet to avoid escalating the drama, especially if legal issues or brand deals are at stake. But the internet isn't having it. She's quick to defend herself against cast members or shady tweets, but when her daughter pours her heart out, she says nothing, one fan wrote on Twitter. Another added, Kandi's energy is different when the cameras aren't on. If Riley's telling the truth, that's the scariest part. And while some are urging others to give Kandi the benefit of the doubt, saying she's probably processing everything in private, others believe her lack of urgency proves Riley's point that image and business come before motherhood. One TikTok creator summed it up best: this is giving brand over blood. On the surface, Riley Burruss lived a dream life. She had a celebrity mom, access to the best events, a spot on one of Bravo's top shows, and followers who envied her every move. But now, we know that behind the designer clothes and cameras, Riley was hiding a deep emotional burden. "I didn't ask for this," she said. "I was born into her brand." That one line hit fans hard. Riley wasn't just expressing frustration, she was admitting she never had a choice. From the moment she could walk and talk, she was a part of Kandi's career. Not because she wanted to be, but because the cameras were always rolling. She said she felt like a side character in someone else's movie, always there to boost the plot, never the star of her own story. Even at family events or on vacation, Riley said there were expectations. Smile for photos, say the right thing, don't cry, don't complain, and definitely don't cause drama. The pressure to be perfect was never ending. What's worse, Riley said this pressure didn't come from fans, it came from inside the home. She wasn't allowed to have a bad day. She wasn't allowed to be herself. People thought her quiet nature meant she was distant, but now they're realizing she was just surviving. And fans can't help but wonder, how many of Riley's happy moments on TV were real? How many were just staged for the cameras? Riley's most painful memories don't come from strangers online or drama between castmates. They come from feeling completely abandoned by her own mother when it mattered most. At just 16, Riley was being dragged on social media. People called her names, made fun of her appearance, and even questioned whether she liked her own mom based on how quiet she was on TV. "I would go into my room and cry," Riley said. "It felt like the world hated me." And the worst part? She says her mom didn't speak up. Not once. Riley waited for Kandi to post something, anything, in her defense. A kind word, a public message saying, "Leave my daughter alone," but it never came. When she finally brought it up, Kandi allegedly told her, "We can't feed into negativity, that's how the trolls win." To Riley, that wasn't wisdom, it was cold. "I didn't need her to protect the brand," she said. "I needed her to protect me." That silence, she says, changed everything. Riley started to believe that staying quiet was more important to her mom than showing support. And for many fans, that realization was heartbreaking. How can someone as strong and outspoken as Kandi Burruss speak out on every issue, except her own daughter's pain? This wasn't just a missed opportunity. For Riley, it was the beginning of a wall between them that never fully came down. When Todd Tucker became part of the Burruss family, many fans saw it as a heartwarming chapter, a chance for Kandi to experience love again and create a blended family full of support. The wedding was televised, the public smiled along, and everything looked like a perfect transition. But behind the scenes, Riley experienced something very different. Riley described the shift as immediate. The house she had grown up in suddenly felt unfamiliar. She no longer felt like she was in her space. There were new dynamics, new routines, and a new voice in the household that wasn't always understanding of what she was going through. She said that Todd began to take a stronger role in parenting, making decisions that used to be handled between her and her mom. When she expressed discomfort or sadness, she felt criticized instead of supported. She felt like her emotions were being labeled as entitlement, when in reality, she just wanted to be heard. The most painful part, according to Riley, was that her mother often stood by quietly during those moments. When Todd would dismiss her feelings, she looked to Kandi for backup, but it didn't come. That silence, she says, left her feeling like her emotional needs were being ignored in favor of keeping the peace in the marriage. Eventually, she started to believe that she wasn't a priority anymore. She felt pushed to the side, not just physically, but emotionally. For a teenager dealing with all the usual stress of growing up, it felt like she had no safe place to land. As Riley continued trying to communicate her struggles, she says the emotional gap between her and her mother only widened. Whenever she brought up how she was feeling, whether it was being excluded, misunderstood, or uncomfortable with how things are going at home, she often found that the conversations ended up with her being told to adjust, rather than being supported. She described how these interactions left her feeling invalidated. Instead of feeling heard, she felt like she was being told that her feelings didn't matter, especially if they challenged the peace Kandi had with Todd. Over time, Riley says she simply stopped trying to explain herself. It became too painful to keep opening up, but their response never changed. Rather than continuing to push for a space that didn't seem available, Riley turned her energy elsewhere. She buried herself in school, friendships, and college planning. Anything that gave her identity outside of the family dynamic that had become so difficult. At home, she no longer felt like someone who was deeply loved and understood. She began to feel more like a representative of the Burruss brand, someone who had put on a face, smile for pictures, and show up when needed, no matter how broken she felt inside. That shift, from being a child to feeling like a tool for image control, became the breaking point for her emotionally. She says that when she stopped feeling like a daughter and started feeling like a product. For Riley, the challenges didn't stop at home. Even behind the scenes, where most teens might find comfort and personal space, Riley says the pressure to represent a perfect image followed her constantly. She recalled how major movements in her life, things that should have been deeply personal, were turned into public campaigns to support her mother's brand. One example she described was her college announcement. While most students get to celebrate that moment privately with their families, Riley said her announcement became a carefully managed rollout. It involved social media posts, media coverage, and even promotional angles designed to show Kandi in a positive light, as a strong mother raising a successful daughter. But Riley didn't feel like the focus was on her growth or achievements. Instead, it felt like her milestones were being used to reinforce someone else's story. She shared that this wasn't a one-time thing. Throughout her teen years, she often felt pressured to participate in photo shoots, brand partnerships, and reality show appearances, not because she wanted to, but because it was good for public perception. She was often reminded that certain moments or actions would look strong or keep the image together, even when she wasn't emotionally in the right space to show up. According to Riley, the way her role in the family was managed made it feel like she existed more as a symbol than a person. Her feelings didn't seem to factor into the decision-making process. What mattered most was how the family looked from the outside. Looking back, she now realizes that what others interpreted as strength or composure was actually an emotional shutdown. She wasn't trying to seem tough or distant. She was just trying to survive in an environment where being vulnerable wasn't an option. After Riley's story went public, reactions online were split and loud. While many fans praised her for her courage and vulnerability, others are far less understanding. In the comments section of blogs, social media, and even fan pages, some people accused her of being ungrateful. They pointed to her lifestyle, her education, and her proximity to fame as proof that she had no reason to complain. But what those critics didn't understand, or maybe chose to ignore, was the emotional toll that comes with being in the spotlight without real support. Riley recalled how the judgment didn't just come from strangers. It felt like the world had already formed an opinion about her based on the version of her they saw on television: quiet, reserved, and maybe even standoffish. That version of Riley was dissected by fans who didn't know what was really going on behind the scenes. They questioned her personality, criticized her appearance, and made assumptions about her relationship with Kandi. All of this happened while she was still a teenager. She described how hard it was to log into her phone and see hundreds of messages tearing her apart. People said she didn't seem happy, that she looked like she didn't love her mom, or that she didn't deserve the life she had. For Riley, these attacks weren't just online noise. They were deeply personal and incredibly painful. Even more hurtful, though, was the silence from the one person she hoped would publicly stand by her. While Kandi continued to post about her businesses, TV appearances, and friendships, there was no public show of support for Riley. Not even a small statement telling people to back off. This silence only deepened Riley's feelings of isolation. She wasn't just hurt by the strangers attacking her, she was devastated that her own mother didn't use her voice to protect her. The experience left lasting scars. Riley said that period made her withdraw even more. She stopped doing interviews, paused her presence on social media, and started pulling away from opportunities that forced her into the public eye. It wasn't about hiding, it was about trying to find peace in a world where she felt constantly exposed, judged, and alone. As Riley grew older, she started to look at her life through a different lens. The red carpets, TV appearances, and smiling photos painted one story, but inside, she felt more like an extra in someone else's show than the star of her own life. She wasn't just struggling with anxiety or self-doubt, she was grappling with the idea that her identity had been shaped around someone else's image from the very beginning. She talked about how being part of a public brand made her feel like she always had to be on. There was no room to cry, no space to express doubt, and no freedom to be vulnerable. When she felt like she didn't matter emotionally, she started to emotionally detach. She described periods where she wondered if her absence would even make a difference. Would it create concern, or just cause confusion over how the brand would move forward without her presence? That kind of feeling revealed how deeply hurt and disconnected she had become. Riley wasn't looking for fame or applause, she was looking for a real connection. What she experienced instead was a slow erasure of who she really was. By the time she found the strength to speak out, she had already spent years fading into the background. Riley Burruss' decision to speak out wasn't about drama, it was about reclaiming her voice. After years of staying silent, she finally told her story, not for attention, but because she could no longer carry the weight of pretending. Her words cut deep because they weren't loud or angry, they were honest. Kandi Burruss, known for being strong, smart, and in control, now finds herself in the middle of a personal firestorm. Whether she's processing everything privately or avoiding it altogether is still unclear. But one thing is certain, the longer she stays quiet, the more people start to question what that silence really means. The Burruss brand, once seen as unshakable, now feels vulnerable. Fans are divided. Some still defend Kandi fiercely, while others are demanding accountability. And as the story spreads, even those who once admired the family's strength are beginning to wonder if that strength came at too high a cost. At its core, this story isn't just about a mother and a daughter falling out. It's about what happens when love becomes performance and when silence starts speaking louder than words. And if Kandi thought the story had already peaked, she might be in for a surprise, because Riley's just getting started.